I never imagined my son would steal his sister's future for a mistress, and then turn violent. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The day our family crumbled like a house of cards, each flimsy card pulled away one by one. I woke up that morning, sun streaming through the curtains, warmth wrapping itself around me like a hug. I could hear the faint sounds of laughter, my children, together, just like it used to be. I thought it would be a good day. How naive I was. It started with a simple call. My heart raced as I picked up the phone, the world outside fading into a dull hum. It was my daughter, Amelia. Her voice trembled. "Mom, you need to come home, it's about Lucas." Those words weighted, heavy, dropped like a stone in my stomach. I could hardly breathe. Lucas was my baby boy. How could there be anything wrong? Arriving home, the air was thick with tension. The laughter was gone, replaced by a cold silence that pressed against my chest. Lucas sat on the couch, his hands fidgeting. His eyes, once so full of mischief, now darkened with something sinister. And next to him, a woman I had never seen before, tall, impeccably dressed, with a smirk that sent chills down my spine. The accusation hung unspoken but palpable in the air. Lucas had chosen her over everything. He had been lying to us, stealing from us, from his own sister. The past few months flooded back. His odd behavior, mood swings, late nights. I thought it was just teenage angst. My heart clenched as I looked at Amelia, her face pale, eyes wide with betrayal. She had worked so hard to get into college, and he had sabotaged it all for what? A mistress? I felt my blood boil, a choking rage welling up inside me. I took a step toward them. The air crackled with tension. "Lucas, how could you?" My voice trembled, fear mixing with indignation. The silence was electric, stretching too long. Then I saw a flicker in his eyes, raw anger bubbling beneath the surface. I should have backed away. But I didn't. "Mom, you don't understand," he shouted, the words bursting out like gunfire. My heart raced, a staccato beat of grief and disbelief. "It's not what you think." His hands clenched into fists, trembling with rage. I could see it spiraling, the wildness, the darkness that had taken hold of him. The woman looked on, her smirk deepening as if she were feeding off our pain. Every heartbeat screamed for me to act, to protect. I reached for Amelia, feeling her little hand trembling in mine. A whisper of fear crawled up my spine. Was this the last time we'd be whole? It felt like standing on the precipice of a cliff, staring down into an abyss that threatened to swallow us entirely. "Mom, please," Lucas gasped, the fight leaving his voice for just a second. But that fleeting moment of vulnerability vanished as quickly as it came. His expression hardened. And then it happened, an explosion of violence, a dark shadow erupting in the living room. I couldn't comprehend it at first, everything blurred. Suddenly, there was shouting and cries, and I saw him grab a vase suddenly. It was airborne, shattering into shards. Time froze as pieces flew around us, jagged and sharp. My heart hammered in my chest. I looked at Amelia, and she stood there, wide-eyed, her breath hitching in her throat, like a deer caught in a spotlight. What had we become? This wasn't our story. And then it hit me. Was this just the beginning? What lay ahead? My chest tightened. I felt the ground shift beneath me, and I realized I no longer recognized my son. It all spiraled into chaos, and there I stood, the weight of our shattered dreams pressing down like a vice. Was there a way back to the family we once were? Could we find a way to heal? Or was it already too late to save Lucas, to save us? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content. Coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days following the outburst were a blur of heartache and uncertainty. I found myself drifting through the motions of daily life, each moment feeling surreal and heavy with the weight of despair. Conversations with Amelia had become strained, words laced with unspoken fears and questions we were both too scared to voice. The silence in our home was deafening, echoing the rifts that had opened between us. When the late evening light began to fade, the shadows within our house seemed to come alive, curling around the corners like ghosts from our past. I would sit at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the untouched meal before me, while Amelia retreated into her room, locked away with her thoughts and fears. It was like living with a stranger. My once vibrant daughter was now a flickering candle, her light dimmed by betrayal and loss. One evening, Amelia broke the silence as I washed the dishes. "Mom, do you think he's gone?" The question hung in the air, a fragile thing that threatened to shatter at the slightest touch. "Gone?" I echoed, turning to face her. I could see the glimmer of tears in her eyes. "He's still here, sweetheart's just lost right now." "Lost?" She scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "He chose her over me, over us. How can you call that lost?" The pain in her voice was palpable, a raw wound laid bare for me to see. I gripped the edge of the sink, searching for words to soothe her aching heart. I remembered how Lucas used to look up to her, his fierce protectiveness of his older sister, a bond that once seemed unbreakable. "He's confused. I believe deep down he still loves you. We just need to find a way to reach him." But even as I spoke, a part of me wondered whether Lucas was unreachable now. The woman who had enchanted him had dragged him into a world I feared would consume him whole. I shivered at the thought, a mix of anger and helplessness coursing through my veins. As the days blurred into weeks, I sought solace in the little things: the morning sun spilling through the windows like a balm for my shattered heart, the sweet aroma of coffee wafting through the air, and small acts of kindness from neighbors who had felt the tremors of our family's turmoil. Mrs. Henderson from next door had brought over a casserole, while Mr. Parker had left a bouquet of fresh flowers on our doorstep, a silent support from the community. It was these moments that reminded me that life outside, despite its cruelties, still held beauty. But the real change came one rainy evening. I had just settled onto the couch, body wrapped in a blanket, when I heard the creak of the door. My heart leaped. It was Lucas. He stood on the threshold, drenched from head to toe, his eyes cast downward. The anger I had held for him felt trivial in that moment. What had become of my boy, Mom? His voice was small, almost unrecognizable. I held my breath, my heart pounding in my ears. "Lucas, what are you doing here?" "We've been worried sick." There was a desperate hope in my voice, tempered by the familiar ache of fear. "I need to talk," he murmured, stepping inside. He looked at me, and I could see the weight of guilt etched on his face. I wanted to rush to him, to wrap him in my arms and tell him that everything could still be okay, but I hesitated. Amelia peeked out from her room, her expression a mix of disbelief and skepticism. I felt the tension crackling in the air as my two children faced each other, a fragile truce hanging between them after an emotional war. "Lucas," she began, her voice thick with emotion, "do you even realize what you've done? You hurt me. You hurt us." His gaze fell, shame radiating from his every pore. "I know," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I thought I was making a choice. I thought I could what? Make everything better? Amelia interrupted, her hurt morphing into anger. "You destroyed my future for a fling. How is that better?" Lucas flinched at her words, and I could see a part of him fracturing under the magnitude of his choices. "I didn't think I'd lose you, both of you," he managed, his voice trembling. "I thought I could walk away. I thought I had an escape." For a moment, time hung suspended, the weight of unspoken emotion swirling among us. I took a step forward, hoping to bridge the chasm that had grown between them. "We can figure this out together, Lucas. We can still heal." His eyes met mine, and there was something ancient and wounded in his gaze, a boy trapped in a storm of his own making, seeking a way back but scared of what he'd find. But before he could respond, a cacophony of sirens shrieked outside, jolting us back to the present. I rushed to the window, heart racing, only to see flashing lights illuminating the street. My stomach twisted as dread settled in its place. "What's happening?" Amelia's voice quivered behind me. I don't know, I breathed, the air thick with tension. But just as I turned back, I caught a glimpse of Lucas, his face paler than before, a look of pure terror crossing his features. Mom, his voice trembled, echoing the fear in my heart. I think I know why they're here, and then something clenched in my chest, a realization dawning, heavy and suffocating. What had I missed? What unspoken truth lay beneath the surface of this chaos? The shadows of my son's choices loomed larger, threatening to consume us all, and I was left standing on the brink of a revelation that could shatter what little we had left. Lucas, what do you mean? My fear morphed into panic as I stood there, awaiting an answer that could change everything. The space between us crackled with tension, our world hanging in the balance, teetering dangerously close to a cliff where all our unhealed wounds lay exposed, waiting to break free. The sirens wailed louder, cutting through the fragile atmosphere with a razor's edge. I felt my heart thud violently against my ribcage, each pulse sending a wave of dread through my body. Lucas, what do you mean? I demanded, fear coiling around my throat like a vice. His face twisted in anguish, and for a fleeting moment, I saw fragments of my son, the boy who used to play in the yard and plant flowers with me during spring. Then, as quickly as it appeared, that image faded behind a wall of guilt and confusion. I didn't just lose my way, Mom. I hurt someone. I hurt more than just you and Amelia. His words trembled through the air, heavy with implication. What are you talking about? I pressed, challenging the silence that lingered uncomfortably between us. Beneath the urgency of my tone lay a threatened desperation. I needed to understand, to put the pieces together before the weight of his confession buried us all. Please, let me explain, he pleaded, his hands shaking as he raked them through his damp hair. The woman from the party, her boyfriend, wasn't just anyone. He has connections, some dangerous connections. I didn't think he would find out. I didn't think it would escalate like this. Like an anchor pulling me deeper into the abyss, his words unleashed a tide of dread within me. I exchanged a worried glance with Amelia, who looked as terrified as I felt. What are you saying? Amelia's voice quivered, barely above a whisper. What did you do? Lucas swallowed hard, his face pallid and drawn. I thought I could handle it. I thought he would scare me off and I wouldn't have to deal with any of it. But I was wrong. He warned me, and I didn't believe him. And now the weight of his revelation hung in the air, the implications swirling like dark clouds. Now what? I pressed, trying to keep my voice steady as chaos whirled through my mind. Lucas, you need to tell USAS if the universe conspired against us. There came the sound of shouting outside, muffled but urgent, breaking our moment of strained connection. My heart raced. Lucas, we can't let whatever is happening get any closer to this house. We need to make a plan. Amelia stepped backward, a flash of hurt in her eyes. Why should we help him? He's the one who threw everything away. He chose this. Amelia, listen, I implored, trying to shield her from the tempest of emotions threatening to crash down upon us. We can't let anger dictate our next move. If there's danger lurking outside. At that moment, the front door swung open, the wind howling through the entrance as two police officers stormed inside, their expressions sharp and scanning the room like hawks. Is anyone hurt? We received a distress call. Lucas stepped in front of me, the ghost that had haunted him for weeks finally surfacing in his eyes. In that throbbing moment, guilt morphed into courage. To think I know why you're here, he stammered, his hands raised defensively. The officers exchanged tense glances, their bodies rigid with the knowledge that we were on the precipice of something gravy, a tragedy waiting to unravel. Kid, step aside. For your own good, one of them warned, his voice low and commanding. I can't. Lucas' voice cracked, and he swayed slightly, as if the burden of his choices was too much to bear. I won't let you take me away until I explain. Explain what? The officer asked, his brow furrowing. I'm involved. I didn't hurt anyone, but I messed up. The guy from the party, he's dangerous. You need to know what he's capable of. Every word sent tendrils of fear slithering through me. I could feel the discontent in Amelia as her gaze swung between Lucas and the officers. You're putting us in danger. She spat, her voice breaking with emotion. How can you expect them to help after what you did? Amelia. Stop. My voice rose above the din, fueled by the need to protect my family. We have to stick together now more than ever. Lucas is still our son. My statement hung like a fragile crystal, ready to shatter at the slightest movement. I had hoped my affirmation would solidify our bond, but instead, it caused an even deeper rift. Awakening the very shadows we had worked to suppress, the officers were growing impatient, unable to decipher the complex web of emotions that had woven between us. We don't have time for this, one said, stepping forward. If there are threats to your lives, we need to know right now. Who are we dealing with? Lucas hesitated, his words hanging in the air like a pendulum swaying between revelation and danger. Two can't say his name. Hell find me. Hell. Just as he spoke, a loud crash echoed from outside, breaking through our bubble of uncertainty. Glass shattered, and I felt my heart leap into my throat. What was that? I shouted, an insatiable panic coursing through my veins. Mom, we have to get out. Amelia cried, her voice strained with fear. No, we stand together. I countered fiercely, grounding myself. Their threats out there, but we're all we have. Lucas, we need the truth. Now. The conflict in his eyes mirrored the tempest in my heart. He opened his mouth, and just like that, the pieces of our lives hung delicately in the balance, teetering on the edge of what could either save us or drown us in this escalating storm. And as the sirens wailed outside, I understood that the real battle wasn't against the darkness outside our door, but with the shadows that loomed within our own hearts, threatening to tear us apart as time ran out. Mom, I was going to face him alone, Lucas finally admitted, and as the truth broke free, I felt the air around us shift. The shadows grew darker, and I could practically hear the ticking clock reminding us that choices made in haste could leave scars that would never fade. The room was a fragile shelter, the air thick with unuttered fears and swirling uncertainties. The sounds of chaos outside had faded into a hollow echo, leaving only the charged silence that hung heavily between us. I could feel my pulse quickening, a drumbeat underscoring the looming storm of emotions. What do you mean you were going to face him alone? I pressed, trying to keep my voice steady. Lucas, that's insane. You can't possibly think I thought I could handle it, he shot back, desperation creeping into his tone, blending with the anguish etched on his face. I thought I could protect you, protect Amelia. But I was wrong. A sudden crack of thunder echoed ominously outside, as if the heavens themselves were voicing their disapproval. I exchanged a glance with Amelia, whose expression had shifted from rage to worry. The fight seemed to be draining from her, leaving confusion in its wake. Protect us? She asked, incredulous. By putting yourself in danger? Lucas, you need to see how reckless this is. You should have come to us. We could have worked together and what? Watch you both get hurt. His voice cracked under the weight of what he was saying. I can't let that happen. Not again. The word again hung between us, heavy with unspoken memories, invoking the ghosts of past choices, mistakes made by both Lucas and myself. For him, they involved nights shrouded in secrecy, nights that had led us to this point of no return. I felt the urge to reach out, to bridge the chasm that was opening up, but I hesitated. How could I comfort him when I myself was navigating the labyrinth of my own fear? Lucas, I summoned enough strength to say, we can't turn against one another now. This fractured family is exactly what he wants. You need to trust us. He looked down, his body trembling as he grappled with the weight of shame and fear. I thought I could protect you, but I just ended up dragging you deeper into this mess. A part of me wanted to scream to let him know that we had all been dragged into this by his choices. But as I opened my mouth, the emotions cascaded like waterworks, a mixture of fury, heartache, and fear. Suddenly, there came another crash from outside, the sound of metal scraping against something hard. The officers exchanged urgent glances, and one began moving towards the door. I'll check it out. You three stay put. Wait. I interjected, my heart racing. You can't leave us alone. The officer paused, his expression lined with concern. If anything seems off, you get upstairs, understood? Lock yourselves in. Well, handle this. Amelia grabbed my arm, her grip like a vice. Mom, we can't stay here. This is so wrong. Every second we waste could bring him closer, Lucas whispered, his voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. I felt torn. Beneath the icy grip of terror, the simmering protectiveness I felt as a mother solidified. I couldn't allow fear to dictate our choices. We need to move, I finally said, determination piercing through the haze of uncertainty. Let's go upstairs. We can think this through. What we faced was larger than any of us alone. We were together, vulnerable and exposed. I hated that our bond had crumbled beneath the weight of Lucas' mistakes, yet I could still feel the thread of love that connected us. Inch by inch, we made our way upstairs, the floor creaking underfoot like the whispers of doubt swirling around us. As we reached the landing, I instinctively pressed my ear against the door, listening for any signs of danger. Outside, the night had swallowed the world in darkness, but somehow, a flicker of hope persisted, a deep-rooted belief that we could find a way through this. Mom? Lucas' voice broke through my concentration, soft and filled with an aching sorrow. What will happen if he finds us? What if I lose you both? I closed my eyes, trying to absorb the weight of his question. We won't let that happen, Lucas, I replied firmly. But you need to promise us no more secrets. We have to be honest with each other if we're going to get through this. I promise, he whispered, though the heaviness of his past sins lingered between us like a storm cloud threatening to break. As we stood together, a newfound determination flickered, but before I could breathe in the possibility of reconciliation, a shadow passed under the door, long and foreboding. My breath hitched in my throat, paralyzing the moment. Did you see that? Amelia whispered, fear threading through her voice. Yes, I replied, gripping Lucas' arm tighter. Stay behind me. The door rattled, and my heart plummeted. I had wanted to shield them, to protect my children from the harrowing truth of our circumstances, but the reality was bearing down on us, and it felt like the last grains of sand were slipping through an hourglass. And then, as the shadow took form, a silhouette against the dim light seeping through the cracks, I knew whatever stood beyond the door was about to change everything. The door creaked ominously, and the faint light flickered, casting unsettling shadows on the walls as I held my breath, praying for safety, for strength. I could feel Lucas's silent tremors next to me, absorbing his fear like a sponge. I had never seen my son so vulnerable and raw, and it twisted my heart in knots. Amelia squeezed my arm tighter, and I glanced down to see the wide, terrified eyes of my girl, the innocence in them battling against the reality that had invaded our lives. Mom, I don't want him to get hurt or us, she whispered, and in that moment, I saw not just her fear but the love that still bloomed amidst the chaos. Another echo of thunder answered her, a reminder that we were trapped between the relentless tempest outside and the storm brewing within our fragile family. It was a dichotomy of emotion, my maternal instinct battling against the urge to shield Amelia and Lucas from the truth that had torn us apart. With a sudden lurch, the door shifted again, the handle rattling harshly. It took every ounce of courage I had not to bolt, but I held my ground for the sake of my children. Stay quiet, I urged, channeling every ounce of authority as the shadows loomed larger. Who's there? The voice that made its way through the wood was gravelly, roughened by impatience and malice. It sent a chill cascading down my spine. Just stay quiet, please, I repeated softly, an incantation to ward off the impending doom. But desperation overrode caution, and before I could steady my nerves, Lucas blurted out, "Get away from my family." A statement fueled by panic, but oh, how it echoed ominously in the threat of the unknown. Lucas! I hissed, fear clawing at my insides. Don't. The rattling intensified, and for a moment, everything felt suspended. The air thickened, pregnant with unrelenting tension, punctuated only by the heavy thud of my heartbeat and the malicious chuckle that slipped through the door like an apparition. Your family? He taunted, his voice dripping with disdain. What a joke. This isn't a family anymore. It's a farce. And I'm here to collect what's mine. My heart dropped. It was him. The man who had taken so much from us already, a specter of chaos haunting our steps, but here he stood flesh and blood, ready to disrupt any semblance of safety we had managed to grasp. Lucas, back away. I commanded, pulling Amelia closer as if my small frame could shelter her from the certainty of humiliation and betrayal. "Open the door," the voice rumbled again from the other side, now laced with fury. "Or I will make you wish you did." This was no longer just about Lucas and the secrets that had unspooled between us, but about the very foundation of our familiar battle for our survival against this dark force. My mind raced as I weighed the options. The realization crept like a shadow into my thoughts: if we didn't emerge victorious, our fractured family could dissolve forever, and I refused to accept that. An idea flickered, desperate and fragile, but promising. I nodded subtly to Lucas, focusing on the moment, my voice quiet yet resolute. "We can go through the window at the back. We need to run when I say so." He nodded, the fight returning to his eyes, a reflection of the fierce love that pulsed between us. However strained it was by fear and anger. We might have been battered and bruised, but we were not done fighting. "Time's up," the voice cut through the tension with cold finality. "You're out of options. Open the door, or face the consequences." My heart raced while dread coiled tight within my stomach. I was acutely aware that my children were counting on me, and the weight of that responsibility felt like bricks pressing down on my chest. On the count of 3, I whispered, glancing between them, desperately igniting a spark of unity. 1, 2. As dread filled the air around us, a loud crash reverberated through the door, bursting open as if the walls themselves surrendered to the chaos. And there he stood, a twisted form of everything I had once known, fury and betrayal etched into his features. "I told you I'd come for what's mine." His eyes fixed on Lucas, the embodiment of every sin he had committed, a mistress promise dangling tantalizingly like a noose. "Get away from him!" I screamed, my heart teetering on the brink of panic, but as his gaze flickered to me, I felt a depth of vengeance rising within. Fear could paralyze me no longer. The moment shattered, and as I prepared to fight for my children's future against the monster that had invaded our lives, I heard Lucas' trembling voice again, low and filled with unexpected ferocity: "You don't get to decide our fate anymore." In that moment, I saw him transform, eyes ablaze with something more than fear, defiance, a glimmer of hope that perhaps we could reclaim our story. But the darkness loomed close, and as we braced for impact, I couldn't shake the dreadful feeling that this confrontation might shatter us entirely. The confrontation felt like the very air around us had vanished, leaving us suspended in a suffocating silence, thick with the tension of unspoken fears and buried truths. I stood before him, a shield for my children, my body instinctively responding to the threat as if my love could create an impenetrable barrier. But even I could feel the tremors in my hands, the reality of our crumbling family pressing down like a lead weight on my heart. "Lucas, get behind me," I commanded again, the warmth of my son's defiance momentarily sparking a sense of hope within me, but dread rushed back as the figure before us stepped forward, his presence darkening the already dim light of the room. "Not this time," he spat, each word laced with venom. "You think you can play the protective mother? You think he will save you?" His gaze shifted to Lucas, his expression twisting into a grotesque smirk. "Let's see how brave you really are when I take everything away from you." My heart raced as I processed his words, the cold reality slicing through my thoughts. I had done my best to protect my children from the dangers of our past, but now it felt as though all that effort was crashing down around us. I glanced at Amelia, eyes wide with fright, and in that fleeting moment, I understood the depth of our collective loss. Our lives had become defined by fear and uncertainty, and he stood before us, ready to dictate our fates. "Stop," Lucas said fiercely, stepping out from behind me. "Just stop. You're not a part of this family. You left us. You chose her over us." His voice trembled, but it was ripe with anger, a complex blend of pain and courage that both scared and amazed me. "Family?" The man's laughter was ice cold, echoing off the walls. "You think this," he gestured between us, "is a family? A pathetic excuse for one, really. Where were you when I needed you? I was the one who sacrificed everything while you were busy playing house." "Sacrificed what?" I yelled, my voice hoarse with emotion. "You sacrificed your integrity, your responsibility, and your love. You chose to walk away rather than stay and fight for us." My heart was racing, each beat laced with fear and anger, but deep down, a flicker of resolve ignited. But then I caught Lucas's eye, and a small piece of joy flickered within me. He had found his voice. Despite the danger surrounding us, he was standing tall, fighting against the tide of despair. My heart swelled with pride, knowing that even amidst this chaos, my son had not lost the essence of who he was. The man took a menacing step toward Lucas, and I felt a rush of panic. You want to act like a man? Fine, then. I'll teach you what it means to be stripped of everything you care about. In that moment, before I could react, Amelia stepped forward, her voice rising above the storm. You don't scare us, she shouted, her small form radiating a fierce strength I had never seen before. You left. You don't get to come back and take what's ours. We are stronger than you think. I watched, my heart caught somewhere between fear and awe, as Amelia's words created a shield of bravery around us. The conviction in her voice was a balm in this dark hour, for it reminded me that there was power in our unity. Even amid our brokenness, love had not fled. It clung to us like an unyielding vine, intertwining our hearts against the backdrop of despair. With every moment that passed, the man's fury intensified, twisting his features into something unrecognizable. You think it's all bravado? You think you're unbreakable? His hand gestured dangerously, and the shadows danced as his anger washed over us like a thunderstorm. I will bend you to my will, just like I did before. We had to do something, but what? I felt the seconds slip away, every heartbeat a reminder of our dwindling options. Could we really escape? Or would this moment fracture us beyond repair? Mom Lucas' voice broke through the whirlpool of my thoughts, and I turned to see him squeezing Amelia's hand, a tether of connection against the gaping chasm between us and our father. We need to stick together. We can still escape. A flicker of hope ignited in my chest, battling against the suffocating shadows. Yes, together, I whispered, willing my resolve to cascade through us like a river of strength. We can fight back. And just when I thought we had found a sliver of clarity, his expression morphed into a grimace of rage. He lunged, and in that instant, time slowed, every second stretched into infinity as dread and determination collided within me. Now, I yelled, grabbing Amelia and Lucas, my voice slicing through the air like a beacon. We turned towards the window, the way out, but in the chaos, a startled gasp escaped Amelia's lips. Mom! She shrieked, pointing past our tormentor to the darkness behind him. My heart sank as I realized what she saw. Emerging from the shadows, another figure stepped forward, a glimmer of familiarity in the bleakness. The ground beneath my feet felt as if it was crumbling, and in that breath, I understood, a realization striking like lightning. This wasn't just a storm at the door. It was a tempest that entwined our fates. And as that figure came into view, it was someone I never expected to see. Someone who could either be our salvation or our final undoing. The revelation washed over me like a wave, cold and unyielding, freezing time itself. In the brittle silence that followed my realization, the darkness of the room seemed to multiply, closing in around us. The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing a face I had not wanted to see, a face that had once been a source of comfort but now brought only turmoil. It was Sarah, my sister, who had dedicated herself to embodying the very image of loyalty and strength. Yet the look in her eyes now carried the weight of secrets and unspeakable ties, a thread of betrayal woven through our family's fabric. Sarah? I whispered, the name tasting bitter on my tongue. Memories of laughter and love bubbled up, clashing violently with the present horror. The warmth of family gatherings, the shared stories under the stars, and the comfort of camaraderie now felt like a cruel taunt. Lucas and Amelia exchanged glances, confusion mingled with dread. I could see their innocence beginning to unravel as the truth of our fractured family splintered before them. The air thickened, pregnant with unspoken words and trapped emotions, reminding me of the fragility of our unity. Why are you here? I demanded, my heart pounding, spiraling into uncertainty. You shouldn't have come back. I had to, she replied, her voice shaky yet resolute, tracing the edges of her anguish. You don't understand what he can do. I thought if I could stop him you had a chance to stop him. I interrupted, desperation clawing at my throat. You had a chance when you chose to align with him instead of your family. You have no idea what he's capable of. The venomous words spilled from my lips like poison, and I could see it hurt her, but this was not about her pain, it was about my children, the remnants of our shattered family, how every choice seemed to spin us deeper into a web of deceit and fear. "Listen," she implored, stepping forward, hands raised in surrender. "I've been looking for you. I was afraid he would hurt you, that he'd take everything from you, but you were with him," I shouted, my voice cracking. "You've been complicit in our suffering," her face twisted in a mix of shame and defiance. "I didn't have a choice. Not then." Her eyes darted to the man, uncertainty helping to weave the shadows around us even tighter. "But I do now, and am here to help you. Please, trust me." "How can I trust you?" Lucas's voice cut through the turmoil, trembling but filled with a growing sting of conviction. "You abandoned us. You were as guilty as he was." My heart swelled with pride at my son's brave proclamation, but before I could respond, the tension reached a breaking point. The man, our tormentor, released a wild roar, his terror growing as he realized that his control was slipping. He surged forward, aiming a swiping hand towards Sarah, dismissing her outright. "Enough of this charade," he bellowed, a storm-hued rage clouding his features. "You're out of your depth, little girl. You think your loyalty means anything? You're just a pawn in this game." As the anger washed over us, I felt a movement within myself, elusive clarity amidst the rising chaos. I grabbed Amelia's hand tighter and pulled my daughter to my side. "Get behind us," I yelled to her, and Lucas mirrored my actions. Together, we formed a barrier not just around our bodies but around our family's spirit, desperate to protect the flickering flame of hope within each of us. But as the man swiped again, it connected with the side of my arm, sharp and blinding, drawing a yelp of pain from my lips. The world contracted to that single point of agony. I stumbled, and as I regained my balance, I caught a glimpse of Sarah's face, the betrayal warring against the remnants of our past. Pain etched across her brow as she moved to step forward in a frantic bid to shield me. "Don't!" I cried out, horrified by the thought of losing more than I already had. Her life had been ensnared by shadows, and I was not willing to put her in danger again, not for my sake, not again. The powerful figure looming ahead, mixed with the darkness closing in from every side, sparked a memory that sent a pulse of courage through my veins. I remembered the tales our grandfather told us. About the strength found in sorrow, about transforming our pain into power. "Together, we stand strong," I shouted, my words resonating through the space like a rallying cry, filled with the weight of my determination for our family. The fire ignited within, stretched thin but unwavering, a flicker we could feed with hope. "Together," echoed Lucas, steadfast beside me, and Amelia chimed in, her small yet fierce voice piercing through the shadows. The three of us drew closer, our hands linking, forming an unwavering front against the darkness, pushing back with every ounce of belief that coursed through us. But just when I felt the surge of unity gather strength, the unseen bonds of the past shattered like glass, sending shards spinning into the night. I turned to find the man rearing back, a wild look in his eyes. A rush of realization gripped me. He had reached for something else entirely, something much more dangerous. "Your family's past is a heavy burden to bear," he sneered, settling his gaze onto us with malevolence. "And I will make sure your children understand that weight." Time froze again, uncertainty hanging thick in the air as dread wrapped itself around my heart. I looked at my children, searching their eyes, my own peril reflecting back at them. How would they manage to carry the legacy of harm and bitterness we had inherited? And then I knew. His words were not a threat, they were a promise. Time continued to unfurl as the darkness began to tease the edges of our collective heartache, a pressing burden that would weigh down not just us, but the entirety of our family's future. Struggling to catch my breath, I was left trembling with the understanding that a new storm was looming, threatening to tear us apart completely. As I watched the horizon of our destiny shift, I was overtaken by an unsettling thought: what lengths would a family go to protect one another? And how deep did love run before it twisted into cruelty? As I braced for the inevitable confrontation, the air thick with fear and anticipation, I felt the ground shift beneath us once more, as everything we thought we understood began to crumble anew, and I failed to grasp how this confrontation was only the beginning of our darkest journey yet. The words hung in the air, a promise twisted like a knife, as silence amplified the heartbeat thrumming in my ears. The man before us was not merely a shadow of our fears, he was the rainstorm that had hung oppressively over our family, threatening to drown us in its darkness. I could feel the turmoil rising in my chest, battling against the fierce protection I felt for my children. "Stay behind me," I whispered urgently, eyes darting to Lucas and Amelia. I needed them to understand the gravity of our situation, to grasp the shifting tides of family alliances that had once felt so stable. I couldn't let despair seep into their hearts, but as the man stepped closer, the clarity of our position faltered. His eyes shot darts of hatred, and I felt the brunt of his rage merging with our own fears. "You don't get to dictate this story anymore," he sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "Your children will learn the true meaning of loyalty. Once they do, they'll understand that love, forged in betrayal, can be the most powerful weapon of all." Each word felt like a thin blade, slicing deeper into the fabric of our family, forcing us to reckon with the ties that bound us not just to one another but to the demons we had inherited. Lucas shifted uncomfortably beside me, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. In that moment, I could see the shadow of self-doubt creeping into his bravado. "You're hurting us," he shouted, his voice trembling but edged with a hint of defiance. That defiance was a beacon in the storm, igniting a flicker of hope in the depths of my heart. "Amelia, hold on to me," I urged, clutching my daughter tighter as she tucked herself close against my side. Her small frame felt like a fragile ember, but the warmth of her presence reminded me of the fight we still had ahead. Suddenly, the weight of the situation spiraled as I caught sight of Sarah, her eyes lined with sorrow that seemed to stretch over the years of separation. "You all don't understand," she said, voice breaking, taking a brave step towards us. "This isn't just about us, it's about his power over all of us. He uses our vulnerabilities against us." Before she could finish her thought, the man lunged, his rage palpable, a feral growl pouring forth like a rumble of thunder. I braced, ready to shield my children, but Sarah threw herself into the fray. "No!" I shrieked, realizing the extent of her resolve to protect us, to mend the rift her decisions had created. The clash was catastrophic, a wound into the already raw source of our pride. The impact sent waves through the being of our fragile unity. It was a scene I never wanted to witness, me sister risking everything to save the family she had once turned her back on. "Sarah!" I cried, watching in horror as the lines of desperation etched deeper into her features, her determination laid bare, and I was torn between awe and fear. "Trust me," she urged once more, her eyes blazing with an intensity that spoke to a deeper connection, a side of her I hardly recognized amidst the shadows. It was the bond of sisterhood that had been frayed but never fully severed, a glint of possibility nestled within her fractured loyalty. A momentary standoff ensued, a heartbeat of breath and anticipation as we searched for a way forward, but in the next instant, the man raised his hand, a burst of dark energy emanating from his palm. Panic surged through me, the image of my children in danger carving a new scar across this already marred moment. "Run! Get out of here!" I shouted, pushing Lucas and Amelia back. "Go! Now!" The unexpected power of a mother's instinct surged through my veins, compelling me to act. They hesitated, but the urgency in my voice ignited the flame of resolve in their hearts. As they turned, I knew they carried the weight of our family's future on their shoulders, just as I had. "Stop them!" the man bellowed, fury punctuating his command as the grip of shadows began to coalesce, surging toward us like a living entity desperate for retribution. And then I felt a split in my chest, a sudden fissure as Sarah interjected. "What are you doing? You're hurting them." The desperation in her tone resonated through the chaos, compelling the man to square his shoulders and prepare the onslaught. My heart sank as Sarah grasped desperation and purpose, two sides of the same coin. In that chaos, two paths unfolded before me. One led towards the glimmer of hope wrapped in sisterly sacrifice, while the other spiraled deeper into the unknown, a haunting reminder of the darkness that had followed us. And just as realization dawned upon my heart, an ominous crack echoed through the room, a split rope hanging in suspense between fate and redemption. Through the haze of fury and pain, an unforeseen bond tugged at the strings of our intertwined fates. But as I watched the remaining distance between us clash into the vortex of chaos, I was struck by a sudden clarity. His threat was more profound than just our lives, it bore into the very core of what our family history had given birth to. "Who before pays in blood?" came a muffled whisper from the shadows, and it froze my heart, one question lingering in the air. The answer hung like a pendulum, twisting through the youthful dreams that flickered dangerously close to extinguishment. A moment of fear surged, and as I glanced toward Sarah, I saw the flicker of betrayal in her eyes suddenly morph into something sinister. I struggled to breathe, and there was a dawning horror slowly seeping into my understanding. The twisted reality of this path might lead not only to uncharted darkness but also into the jagged reflections of an uncertain alliance. What if Sarah was not only serving to protect but also to exploit our vulnerabilities for her gained purpose? The suffocating realization was an encroaching storm, a burgeoning chaos that threatened to swallow us whole. We weren't just on the brink of war against an adversary but lingering, haunted beneath the weight of our own blood ties where love and betrayal danced an unforgiving tango on the edge of despair. And all at once, I faced the truth: the battle for our family's future was far from over, but I could never have envisioned the cost all along. The echoes of Sarah's desperate pleas reverberated in the air like a chime, each ring stronger than the last, attempting to reach through the thickening chaos. As I grappled with the haunting realization of betrayal flickering in her eyes, I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet. This was not merely a fight for survival, it was the unraveling of our very identities, of all we had clung to in our darkest moments. "Sarah, please," I cried, both hope and despair spilling over into my voice. But I felt her resolute stance just a step back. Shadows loomed larger, and I knew our future hung in a precarious balance. Was she aligning with the darkness to gain control? Or was her intention still rooted in an idea of redemption? A rush of fear surged through me as the man's dark energy coiled and twisted in response to his growing anger. The shadows flickered like serpents, dancing through the air, mesmerizing yet terrifying, threatening to snare us all. I had to choose quickly, and every heartbeat felt like an eternity run. I shouted again, but this time my grasp on Lucas felt like a splintering bone. He stood, frozen, his eyes wide with a blend of confusion and defiance. "No. I won't leave you." His voice broke, an anthem of fury and fear that struck a chord deep within me. The room shifted, caught in the undeniable power of his conviction. Amelia clung to his arm, casting sideways glances between Sarah and the man, trying to discern the greater threat. "Mom, we can't just," she started, but at that very moment, the wild energy burst around us like a supernova. Before we could react, a surge of the darkness lashed out, grazing my side, igniting pain that radiated through me like a wildfire. I stumbled back, gasping as the shadows sobered my instinctive urge to protect them. "Get out of here," I begged, gasping as anger and anxiety blurred into one dot. But as I felt the weight of pain anchor me further to the ground, a new realization pervaded the haze. If this man could commandeer my daughter's fears, what else had he coiled around her heart? What other promises had been woven into her thoughts while I struggled to hold the family together? "Leave," Sarah roared, a fierce protective mantle unfurling from her shoulders, a structure of arms bound together not just in defense, but in an unyielding sisterly bond. She lunged, meeting the dark energy with a fierce light of her own, revealing an unforeseen strength. It held much of the spirit I had known growing up, but underlying it now was something raw, fragile, and imperfect. "This isn't just a choice for you, it's a step towards making things right," she shouted. The man recoiled, caught off guard by Sarah's sudden vigor, and for the briefest moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Could she be the necessary push forward? Was there still a chance to unite against the encroaching storm? But then, amidst Sarah's audacious defiance, I saw it again, the flicker of cold calculation in the man's eyes, the depth of the malice brewing beneath the surface. An unsettling thought struck me. What if Sarah had been woven deeper in his web than I had feared? Was this a plan set in motion long before our confrontation? "Lucas," I pleaded softly, "I need you to remember who you are, who we are." But his mind was a tempest of anger and loyalty, wavering like a flame caught in cruel winds. So, I switched tactics, seeking to ignite his resolve directly. "You've always been brave. We can't give up now. We can't let this man define our fate." Yet every word felt frail against the looming darkness pulling us under. A quick glance back revealed Amelia's wide, fearful eyes, the glimmer of tears ready to spill. It fortified my desire to shield them fiercely. "Hold on to each other. I shouted, urging their bond to fortify as the energy began to swell around us again. Then, unexpectedly, a figure emerged from the corner, a glimmer of hope cloaked in urgency. Edward, our estranged ally, stepped forward through the heavy curtains of despair, his brow furrowed, and his expression a tapestry of concern and determination. "Enough!" he bellowed, raising his hand. Palms held upward as a sign of peace. "We're not here to hurt. We're here to heal." The room held its breath in the wake of his declaration. Even the shadows seemed to withhold their greed for a moment. "There's still a chance for reconciliation if we just stand together," he pressed, reaching out toward my children. I watched as the profound words wrapped around Lucas and Amelia. I could see their resolve wavering, hope flickering like a candle in the wind. For that fleeting instant, I sensed that just perhaps, the universe was extending a lifeline opportunity not just to escape but to confront, to transcend the pain embedded in our legacies. But just as quickly, the man's laughter shattered the fragile grasp of hope like glass hitting stone. "Reconciliation?" he scoffed, shifting his attention toward Edward. "You think these children, hardened by betrayal, can truly accept anything but betrayal? You, of all people, should know the cost of playing this game." And in that moment, the ground felt unsteady beneath my feet once again. The true weight of our divisions and alliances reared its head, as shadows coiled tighter, threads of pain entwined our stories into a tapestry I had never anticipated. Lucas turned back to me, confusion clouding his young features as uncertainty settled heavily on his shoulders. "Mom, what do we do?" he asked. His voice trembled, sparkling with the resilience I adored, but beneath lay the raw affliction of a heart brought to the brink by the truths lingering in the air. Before I could respond, a crack sounded from the corner of the room, and an old family portrait toppled, shattering against the floor. The image, forever encompassed in happiness, lay alongside the darkness that had seeped deep within our veins. Its demise felt like a bell tolling, resonating through our entangled fates. "Choose wisely," the man snarled, darkness swirling violently around him, transitioning into irretrievable malevolence. "The consequences shall be felt for generations." And as I clutched my children's trembling hands, I realized, the fracture that lay ahead was not just between us and our adversary but among us, binding us in joys and griefs shared, forever changed. Just then, Sarah spoke, voice steady and fierce, "We will not let him define us." But even as she spoke, I felt the tremors of doubt, as I couldn't shake the growing horror of the truth she might still be caught up in her own ambitions. Toes dipped into the murky depths of uncertainty, fueling the turmoil between us, and as the shadows conspired, a chilling sense of foreboding crept in. The battleground was set, and our fight for unity was perilously poised on the edge of the knife. The storm outside raged as if the very heavens had joined the chaos within. I could feel the weight of our entangled fates, the past coiling us together, while the present threatened to tear us apart. "Together!" I called out again, my voice a rallying cry against the encroaching darkness. But even as I spoke, doubt seeped into the edges of my resolve. Could we truly stand united against the man who had wrought havoc upon our lives, or would division tear us asunder? Amidst the swirling chaos, the tension pulled taut, and I felt it in my bones, the lure of despair and the glimmer of hope warring for control. Lucas had taken hold of Amelia's hand, and I could see the determination in their eyes. Mixed with fear, there was an ember of defiance, a reminder that despite the shadows threatening to consume us, we held the power to shape our own destinies. "Mom," Lucas' voice cut through the din, firm yet trembling, "we can't let him win. We have to remember who we are." The strength in his words soothed the frantic fluttering of my heart, reigniting the fire buried beneath the layers of hurt and anger. I stepped forward, bolstered by his conviction. "Yes. We are more than his bitter memories. We are three hearts joined against the darkness." I turned to Sarah, desperately hoping she could grasp the depth of what we were facing, my voice softening. "You want to be part of this redemption, then show us. Fight with us, not against us." Her gaze flickered, uncertainty etched deep within. "I've made my mistakes," she admitted, her voice a hushed whisper almost drowned by the rumble of thunder outside. "But I don't want to lose you again." There it was, hovering in the air between us, a sliver of vulnerability wrapped in love mingled with remorse. The man's sneer deepened. "How quaint, but nostalgia won't save you." Your family is just a house of cards, ready to collapse. With that, he thrust his hand toward us, a dark force surging to connect the threads he sought to pull apart. The tendrils reached out like writhing snakes, grasping for our weaknesses, our fears, each whisper amplifying the doubts we had fought so hard to suppress. In that moment, I caught sight of Amelia readying herself beside Lucas, her small frame filled with determination. "We're not afraid of you," she shouted, her defiance lending more strength than I could have expected. The strength of a child molded by innocence but steadfast in love was breathtaking. With a surge of defiance, I grabbed Lucas and Amelia by the shoulders, pulling them close, drawing them into the fold. "We have something he can never grasp." My voice heightened, fueled by the unity we formed, 3 hearts beating in rhythm against the encroaching shadows. "We have each other." And as I spoke, I felt a swell of energy rising, echoing through us, fortifying our resolve, reminding us of the tenacity of love wrapped in trust. "Together," we declared, a symphony of hope woven into the chaotic tapestry of our lives. The shadows recoiled, momentarily stifled by the sheer force of our collective spirit, and for the first time, I saw uncertainty flutter across the man's features. But he quickly masked it with anger, lashing out in desperation as if struggling to wield the very chaos he had summoned. "Enough!" he roared, but it felt weaker, less commanding. The energy that had once linked us to despair was now tempered by the burning flame of our unity. In that second of agonizing clarity, I saw not just my children beside me but the threads of our family legacy woven together, anew, pain and love mingling to forge strength I never realized we had. "Mom, look!" Lucas shouted, interrupting my reverie, and I followed his gaze through the fractured hall. The shadows that clung to the man began to wane, overtaken by a radiant light glowing just beyond the storm, a light emanating from the sheer force of our unity. I could feel every heartbeat aligning, resonating with this revelation. "Together, we could shape our own future. Now, Sarah," I urged, and looking into her eyes, I saw her making a choice. The bond of shared history flickered brightly, and for the first time, I believed she might choose love over betrayal. With a surprising resolve, Sarah stepped forward. "Together," she echoed, her voice gaining strength. "We are the legacy of love, of resilience. We transcend betrayal." The declaration sent the energy spiraling anew, an unyielding wave of love rushing to reclaim the threads of our destiny. The shadows recoiled violently, losing their grip on us, flickering in response to the beacon we had ignited together. But the man wasn't done yet. With a grimace of rage, he hurled one last wave of shadows at us, something I hadn't prepared for. I felt the storm surge around us, threatening to strip everything we had rebuilt away in an instant. "Stay strong!" I shouted, bracing myself, feeling the force crash against me. And then, in a resounding moment of unity, I felt the warmth of my children's shoulders against me. "We are a family," they declared, and the love surging between us ignited into a blinding light. The shadows split, torn by our willingness to fight together, and I could feel the shards of hurt fracture away, discord dancing like faded autumn leaves spiraling into the storm. In that pivotal moment, the air around us electrified, a cacophony of fragmented emotions crashing against one another: fear, grief, betrayal, love, all swirling in a furious tempest, giving birth to something entirely new. As the darkness began to absorb into the light of our unity, I felt limbs shaking with strength. The promise of hope, forged in the fires of anguish and desire, wrapped around us like an impenetrable fortress. "Together," we roared, an anthem that echoed through the night, and in that ultimate clash, when everything had seemed lost, it was unity, love mingled with resolve that turned the tides. As the last of the shadows sank beneath our joined light, I opened my eyes to see the man falter, his power waning as he roared in disbelief. "This can't be." He stumbled backward, the rage evaporating from his being. "It already is," I cried, a wave of relief and triumph washing over me as the shadows surrendered to the radiance born from our hearts. With one final blast of light, our collective wills merged, shattering the chains that bound us to the trauma of the past. And in that blinding moment, a stark clarity emerged: we would forge a new path. As everything else around us crumbled and dissolved into oblivion, we emerged from the storm bold and fierce, a testimony to the resilience of a family shattered but not broken. The journey was never meant to be easy, The frayed edges of our tapestry might still show remnants of pain, but now they glimmered with the light of hope and love healed anew, and standing hand in hand with Lucas and Amelia, free from the shackles of darkness that had haunted us for too long, I felt the last vestiges of despair dissolving into the depths of the night. "Love is stronger than fear," I whispered, glancing at my children, their faces filled with newfound resolve. It was a promise, a commitment to nurture the bonds we had forged through pain and heartache. As we stepped into the dawn, the first light of a new beginning breaking through the horizon, I took a breath, filling my lungs with the freshness of hope. Our family was remade in the crucible of strife, tempered with resilience and love. We were not just survivors, we were warriors crafting our destinies, and with every heartbeat echoing through the air, one truth emerged: we choose love not just for today, but for every tomorrow to come. And in that moment, as the sun rose, illuminating a world reborn, I finally understood that sometimes, even amidst the ruins, new life could bloom.